Xi Jinping meets Barack Obama in St. Petersburg. Locally, Ming Pao ordered to pay damages in libel case involving football chief. And former IXCO member reflects on ICAC probe into him.
Good evening. President Xi Jinping and his U.S. counterpart Barack Obama today discussed Syria and other pressing world issues on the sidelines of the G20 summit in the Russian city of St. Petersburg. Global leaders have expressed concern the rift over Syria could overshadow efforts to forge a united front on other issues such as trade and economic recovery. Sonia Artero has our top story.
President Xi Jinping today met with his U.S. counterpart Barack Obama on the sidelines of the G20 summit in St. Petersburg. The two leaders exchanged views on bilateral issues. Xi said he's happy the two countries have improved military ties and continue to cooperate on major global and regional issues.
A stable and prosperous and responsible role.
Obama agreed, adding that Beijing and Washington have made progress on mutual concerns over climate change and strengthening military relations. According to the White House, the two leaders also discussed Syria, North Korea, and cybersecurity. Obama admitted there will continue to be disagreements between the two countries, but that tensions can be managed. She also met briefly with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The president said ties between their nations were facing grave difficulties because of the dispute over the Diaoyu Islands, known as the Senkakus in Japan. She also said Tokyo should deal with history in line with the spirit of facing it squarely and look forward to the future so as to seek a way to properly manage differences. Abe responded by saying he too is eager to improve Sino-Japanese ties. On Syria, Obama still did his best to drum up support for a military strike in response to last month's chemical attack near Damascus, which he blames on the Syrian government.
It has induced some of the key countries, his G8 partners, Canada, which had been reluctant, France, but also the frontline states in the region, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, to say we are on the side of President Obama.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is adamant no such strike would take place without UN approval. But the U.S. ambassador to the UN insists Russia is blocking action against Syria at the Security Council.
Russia continues to hold the Council hostage and shirk its international responsibilities.
Power's remarks appear to leave no doubt that when it comes time, Washington will not seek UN approval for striking Syria. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
In what could be a sign that Russia is deploying its military to help the Syrian regime, Russia's Navy was seen rotating its warships in the Mediterranean. 2 Russian warships passed through Istanbul's Bosporus Strait yesterday. The 2 destroyers followed one of the Russian Navy's largest intelligence ships, the CCB-201, which made the same trip earlier from the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. The Russian Defense Ministry admitted new warships were sent to the Mediterranean, but described the movements as routine. Moscow has been a supporter of Damascus in the 2.5-year conflict that's killed more than 100,000 people.
To other news now, there are still more revelations about the extent of spying being done by the U.S. National Security Agency. The NSA and its British counterpart have reportedly been secretly unraveling encryption technology that billions of Internet users rely on to keep their data confidential. Alan Buckner reports.
One document said the UK spy agency, Government Communications Headquarters, better known as GCHQ, had developed new access opportunities into Google's computers but the reports didn't elaborate what kind of data it could access. The U.S. government has asked news organizations not to publish these kinds of stories, saying foreign enemies would switch to new forms of communication and make it harder for the NSA to break. The revelations have sparked renewed debate about the proper balance between civil liberties and keeping the country safe from terrorists. Allegations of NSA spying drew the ire of Russia and other BRICS countries, namely China, India, Brazil, and South Africa. At the G20 summit meeting in Russia, a spokesman for President Vladimir Putin compared the electronic espionage to terrorism.
In Hong Kong, the High Court has ordered local newspaper Ming Bao to pay $500,000 in damages to the vice chairman of the Hong Kong Football Association for libel. The case involves an editorial published in 2009. Evelina Leung reports.
The editorial in question focused on alleged match fixing in local football. Pui Kwan Kay sued Ming Bao for libel. The editorial has already been found to have made defamatory statements against the vice chairman of the Hong Kong Football Association. In passing his judgment today, Judge Thomas Au said the allegations made in the editorial were serious and were very critical of the development of football in Hong Kong. The judge pointed out that Pui was specifically named in the editorial a number of times. Au also said the writer failed to take adequate steps to verify the information in the article. The defense of qualified privilege is therefore not established on the facts of the case. Ming Bao was ordered to pay $500,000 to Pui for libel. Pui said he is satisfied with the judgment because his reputation suffered after the article was published. Pui, who's also chairman of local team Happy Valley, said the case indirectly cost his team sponsorship deals. Ming Bao, for its part, released a statement this afternoon saying it disagrees with the judgment. The newspaper pointed out the jury had ruled that its reporter did seek verification of the story with Pui. Ming Bao said it is now seeking legal advice and is actively considering filing an appeal against the judgment. Evelyn Lang, TVB News.
Former Executive Council member Franklin Lam has criticized the media and political parties for hurling accusations against him, which sparked an ICAC probe. But he says he doesn't expect any apologies. Stephanie Choi reports.
Rooting for the ICAC was the name of an article Lam wrote for a newspaper. In it, the former Executive Council member cited comments by others that questioned the fairness of high-profile complaints to the ICAC made by political parties. Those comments suggested that the parties had ulterior motives while making the allegations against Lam. He reminded his readers that even the perfect anti-graft system could fail if it's abused. The former EXCO member also disagrees with suggestions that recent comments made by certain government officials exerted pressure on the ICAC. Lam said if the government really wanted to do so, it could have done that during the investigation rather than waited until it was over. He also pointed out that he and his family were hounded and harassed by the media because of the case. Still, he doesn't expect any apologies, saying different people have different motives and moral standards. Lam had been accused of misconduct in public office when he sold 2 properties before the government announced measures to cool property prices last October. But the government said that Lam would not have known about these measures beforehand. He took a leave of office for about 9 months, and Lam resigned from the Executive Council after the Department of Justice decided not to press ahead with the case, citing a lack of evidence. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.
The chief executive of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority says he does not see the creation of a free trade zone in Shanghai as a threat to Hong Kong's role as a leading offshore renminbi centre. Norman Chan believes the city still has the edge over its rivals. Joao da Silva reports.
With plans to set up a free trade zone in Shanghai that could allow for easier renminbi convertibility, there are fears that it may affect Hong Kong's status. But the head of the Monetary Authority, Norman Chan, played down such concerns by pointing out that Hong Kong holds a competitive edge over its rival to the north.
I think Hong Kong already has a world-class financial center, has a leading edge in the offshore renminbi business. We have our own advantages, and therefore it is important that we continue to upgrade our platform in facilitating and transacting renminbi businesses, and we will be able to maintain a competitive edge over time.
Even though there are suggestions that Shanghai's free trade zone is attempting to emulate the Hong Kong model, which could result in businesses moving north, Chan notes that Shanghai will likely face the same problems as other offshore renminbi areas when it comes to the mainland's capital controls. On the potential easing of the bond-buying stimulus package by the US Federal Reserve, Chan expressed caution and admitted that it may trigger a capital outflow. And despite local and central government officials repeatedly sounding off the alarm that mass protests such as those planned by the Occupy Central movement could seriously disrupt Hong Kong's financial industry, the head of the Monetary Authority does not subscribe to that view.
Well, the banking system in Hong Kong is very robust and resilient. I think our banks are well positioned and well prepared to withstand future shocks, whichever the source.
João da Silva, TVB News.
The Secretary for Food and Health says the government is concerned about the death of a cancer patient whose breathing tubes were found to have tissue paper inside. But Ko Wing-man refused to say if human error was to blame. Concerns about the death of the elderly cancer patient. A nurse at Tung Wah Hospital cleared the airway of the 88-year-old man on Wednesday morning before he was taken to Queen Mary Hospital for a regular radiotherapy session. All his vital signs were said to be normal then, but the patient was found to be unconscious by the time he arrived at Queen Mary Hospital. While trying to resuscitate him, medical staff found tissue paper inside the airway under the tracheostomy opening. He died later that night. Secretary for Food and Health Ko Wing-man today called the incident a matter of concern.
But because preliminary investigation by the hospital cannot identify any reason or the source of this particular artifact, therefore any subsequent investigation should be undertaken by the coroner officer, and the hospital authority and the professional staff will do everything to cooperate with such investigation.
On the controversy over the suspension of the head of cardiology at Prince of Wales Hospital, Yu Chak-man, Ko said the hospital authority is now considering inviting an overseas expert to assist in the investigation by an independent review committee.
The local tourism industry is expected to get a boost thanks to a move by mainland authorities to ease arrangements for cruise travelers. As Ronnie Samtani reports, cruise operators are now revealing big plans to attract more visitors, with Hong Kong as the home port.
At the moment, mainland tourists can board a cruise from Tianjin or Shanghai to Taiwan, Japan or South Korea, but they're only allowed one stop each trip. Thanks to a new policy from mainland authorities, they will soon be able to city hop as long as they board the cruise from Hong Kong. The Tourism Board says it now has more leverage to get operators to make the new Kai Tak cruise terminal its home port.
We're trying to attract more cruise companies use this itinerary, especially they're looking for the future development of the Asian cruise, ship operations. So I think China is one thing they are all very attractive to them.
This is one of the companies with big plans for Hong Kong. It's designing an 8-day trip from Hong Kong, stopping over in Keelung or Kaohsiung in Taiwan, then Okinawa, Japan, and Jeju, South Korea, before finally porting back down in Shanghai. But representatives are still hammering out the details, and so tourists won't be able to go on this trip until the end of next year. The government hopes being the home port to the regional cruises will mean more tourist dollars for the territory. To boost the low number of bookings since the Kai Tak terminal had its soft opening in June, a cruise expo will be held there later this month. Meanwhile, officials have promised to fix the many problems that have plagued the terminal, such as water leakage and poor transportation arrangements, to ensure that tourists leave the city with a good impression. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
And back overseas now, Egypt's interior minister has survived an assassination attempt. A car bomb tore through his convoy in Cairo yesterday, wounding 22 people. That's the first such attack since the ouster of President Mohamed Morsi. No one has claimed responsibility for the bombing targeting Mohamed Ibrahim. Finally for tonight, a giant duck on a world tour made a stop in Beijing today. The 18-metre-tall inflatable duck, created by Dutch conceptual artist Florentine Hofman, has already attracted worldwide attention after appearances in 8 major cities around the world. A slightly shorter 16.5-metre version came to Hong Kong in May. Visitors noted that the Beijing duck didn't appear fully inflated and the beak was sagging slightly, giving it a sad look. The giant duck will stay afloat on the Yongdeng River in Garden Expo Park until September 23rd, when it will move on to Kunming Lake in Beijing's iconic Summer Palace. And that's the news for tonight. Thanks for watching.
Good night.